Do you want a weekly dose of energy and marketing tips to grow your business? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Lisa Pezik Show, a podcast that empowers entrepreneurs to heal and be heard, the permission to pivot, and the tools to design a life you love.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Lisa Pezik Show. Ooh. We're talking about freedom today. I know you've heard that word. It's been thrown around. It seems to be kind of like the holy grail of what every entrepreneur wants, what every business owner wants, why people leave corporate jobs and high-paying jobs, and typically why we get into business is because we have a huge purpose and we want to have our time. We want to do the things that excite us and the things that make life worth living. But maybe you're like, man, I'm in here and I'm doing this thing and this don't feel like freedom. How did I get here? How did this happen? How do I get out of this rat race? Or how do I even begin to dip my toe in the water and start to figure out what is the right direction? And I'm so excited today to have Vanessa Shaw on the podcast with me. Vanessa, welcome.
Lisa, this is going to be such a fun conversation today. We've got a lot to cover.
Oh my goodness. So Vanessa and I met through the group called the Dames. We are both chapter presidents, and this is a 6- and 7-figure women connecting, collaborating, just awesome group where we have these real kinds of conversations. There's not a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of muck. It's just, let's get in and really get to know each other and grow together and serve together. And that's what I really want to do on this podcast, because Vanessa and I were going back and forth the one day on this, post that was created. And it's like, what are all the things that just need to stop in the online space? What are all the things that we need to stop saying and stop buying into? And this whole concept of freedom really came up. And do we actually know, what the heck it looks like? And the reason why we have Vanessa here is because she is a highly accredited and internationally recognized business success coach. Whether you're seeking more income, making a bigger impact, or enjoying greater freedom, Vanessa and her dedicated team of professionals at the Business Growth Academy can help turn your entrepreneurial dreams into a reality. So Vanessa, let's dive in. Do people really understand and grasp what freedom really looks like in business and life?
No. And let's just stop right there. No. Right? Really, no.
Yeah.
It is very, very rare that I come across somebody when I'm speaking to them, that when I really ask them, like, what does that look like to them? Like, what is that next level of freedom, that they've actually thought about it and got specifics around it. And as you say, Lisa, right, the term is bandied around so much, especially in entrepreneurial circles, online circles. And I think, we need specifics, right? Because again, like, how do we even define, okay, this sense of freedom, right? Somebody that's leaving corporate, I know you have, some people that have got big dreams of being what I would call like a corporate escapee. And by the way, I think that's a really good dream to pursue.
I love that term.
Escape, right? Escape, come to the other side. It's so much better over here, right? But I can appreciate that somebody that is a corporate escapee, they get out, they want to set up their own business, they're going to have a real sense of freedom in the early days, right? Because all of a sudden the structures, the systems, and everything that they had to do, everything they had to show up for is going to be changed. And that's going to give that sense of freedom. Yeah. Right. But again, as we know, what tends to happen is if you're really, doing the work to grow your business, whether you've, corporate escapee, you're already independent and you're taking your business to the next level, this notion of freedom rapidly changes, and it actually starts to change. I mean, we can probably well, actually, it's kind of two ways. I'm going to riff off of this, but I'm saying I can almost put a dollar amount of when it really starts to get kind of painful. This sense of freedom. But in the early days, we're trying to build the business. So we haven't necessarily got as many clients, right? We're not making the impact that we want. We haven't got the clients and the cash flow. So a lot of time is dedicated to building, right?
Yep.
By the way, I'm actually going to say, because I know your audience wants no fluff. I'm going to actually say that a lot of time is spent actually building the wrong things.
Yep.
The wrong things.
Yep.
Like, we're going to build this gorgeous website. We're going to build all this collateral. We're going to do all of these things. We're going to design offers and services that frankly, probably nobody even wants to buy. Right? Because again, we spend so much time thinking about these things, designing them, often in a vacuum.
Yep.
And what that's going to do is that sense of freedom. Right? In those early days, it's like, well, now we don't necessarily have all the clients that we want, nor have we got the money that we want, or money's starting to dwindle. And we're putting all of this hours in building, right? That typically doesn't feel that freeing after a point. The other side of that is what, tends to be a little bit more my audience is, and as you say, we're talking about this in the Dames as well, is the women I work with are already proven concept, and they've already got their first 6 figures through the door, right?
Yep.
So that means it's proven concept, and probably around, we see it somewhere around typically 140, 160-ish in annual revenue.
Yep.
They are maxed out.
Yeah.
Right?
I call it the 6-figure rat race.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
The hamster wheel, because guess what? They've built the business, they've got the clients, they're serving the clients, they're, typically as well, a range of different clients, by the way, at this point, a whole different range of, in my world, we call them champagne, wine and beer. I think it doesn't need much explanation. But again, there's typically a range of clients, and anything is, extra time is spent for trying to market and trying to get more clients, because some of those ones are going to be falling off at some point, and there's a level that they can't get beyond. But again, right, there's not, where's the freedom in that, right? It's that sense of, if I stop doing what I'm going to do, what I've worked so hard to build, I'm scared that I'm going to lose it, right? Mm-hmm. And that, by the way, is a classic kind of pain point where we actually start working with people. Mm-hmm. Okay, like, where's the freedom in all of this, right? The conversations that I have, Lisa, and I know you do as well, you come up against this a lot, is I want to take a vacation.
Yeah.
I want to stop working weekends. I don't want to work Saturday. I want to have one day off. Like, I don't want to be so preoccupied. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even if there's some free time, it's that constant, oh my gosh, like, I'm worrying about this. Did that get done? Are things falling through the cracks? Like, there's no freedom in that. And I think what we have to realize is what we're talking about here most times is actually flexibility. It's not real freedom. And when something is so dependent on you to show up the whole time, to generate those results for your clients, right? To be filling your own pipeline where, again, you've constantly got to show up, whether it's online, offline, or blended, it doesn't matter, right? Yeah. Freedom is not happening. And a lot of, we also know that a lot of, let's say, small business owners actually kind of want to be solopreneurs, right? They're like, I just want to do it all because I don't want the hassle of hiring team and employees and all the rest of it. Well, one of the things I always say is that if you're going to be a solopreneur, you need to accept that you are giving up freedom. So you can make income, right? You can make a lot of money. We work with people that get still even solo. It's rare that they get to multiple 6 figures, but sometimes if they've really got their business model dialed in, right, you could be a solopreneur doing, a good 300,000-400,000 perhaps. And yeah, you could be paying yourself a lot from that because you haven't got the overheads, right? Again, I say these examples are rare, but it is possible. Yeah. Yet everything's dependent on you. So what happens if you get sick? What happens if aging parents, you want to spend time with them? What happens if one of your kids gets sick? Right? Well, I mean, again, those are the kind of catastrophes and things that can happen. We've been living through COVID, right? This has been real. Like, what if you just want time for yourself? What if you want time for those loved ones? Right? Very, very difficult. So yes, you can make income. Yes, you can make impact as a solopreneur, but that whole concept of freedom it will be eluding you.
Yeah. And I find that when you're putting out content or you're trying to come up with your next thing, when you're doing it from that spiral of I have to, or I need to get this next client, or I have to do this thing, it's just a different kind of energy than when, like you said, you're rested, you're in your element, you've got people that are helping you. It's a different way to run your business. And I think that there's it's like that downward spiral of scarcity that happens.
Yes.
Because you feel like, well, you're the only, I've had people say to me, oh, nobody could write my copy. Nobody understands my business the way I do. No, you just haven't you haven't had a conversation and found the right person, or you haven't relinquished control.
Yeah,
so
and trained them.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
These are very trainable skills. So again, as you say, it's that, for me, it's that sense of like, we've got to change the words because it's banded around too much. This freedom is this kind of global thing. I think what most people mean is flexibility.
I love that. It's
right?
So true. Yes.
And again, that's very desirable, right? I totally get it now. Again, that's like very desirable. The flexibility to work from a coffee shop, right? I was just in Denver, like meeting with the headquarters of the Dames, and actually kind of did a little bit of a workation, a few business meetings, wanted to hang out with some people. Did like a 4-day trip up to Aspen at the end of it, completely unplugged with friends, right? That was flexibility.
Oh, yes.
Right? There was a lot of flexibility. I can get on a plane, I can work from anywhere, I can be at a coffee shop, right? Fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But the freedom bit came into okay, I can completely go off, be unplugged now because team will take over. I'm not worrying about processing invoices or, getting payments through or all of those other things. It's like, hey, I'm gone. Don't expect to hear from me, right? That now for me is tapping into freedom. And I think just to kind of finish this thought, Lisa, and I'll kind of talk in a minute about, 5 levels of freedom that we've actually identified and helped our clients work through. But if there was one tip, like for your audience to take away from this, it's like, could we start to get specific about actually what it looks like? Because freedom is something that grows over time. And when we first start out, it is going to look very different to somebody that's a way more seasoned business owner that's been really developing let's say their muscle of freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's, again, why people struggle to get there, because freedom in the early days could be, I'm no longer working Friday afternoon.
Yes. Yeah. Get clear about, and that looks so different than for everybody. Yes. I know for me early on, money was, people are like, oh, you want to be an entrepreneur because you just want to make more money. And I'm like, money is not a driver for me. Time with my children, Friday, time with my husband, time with my family, time off the grid, time to be able to travel. And I wanted that flexibility that when I need to be working and I need to be doing great, but then on days I can just be like, I'm gone, I'm off, and the business will run itself. I think that's the fear, is that everything is going to fall apart if I'm not the one doing it. And I always say, you are not a strategy. Like, you are not duplicatable.
No.
A system is duplicatable.
Yeah.
Strategy is duplicatable, but you are not duplicatable. So when you are your business, you're right. I love how you said it's the flexibility more than the freedom, and get clear about what exactly is that is flexibility to you. What does that look like to you? Now, go ahead.
I was going to say, so then what I was going to say, just to break it down further, right? Let's look at the 5 levels of what I call freedom.
Yeah.
The very first one, for me, the foundation is self-expression. You're going into business for yourself. Are you being you, right? Really? Or are you being some kind of persona or putting on an act because you think that that's how business works, or you're going to get business? Because again, that's exhausting. That is really draining, right? So the freedom to be you, it's like, if you're going to be in business for yourself, part of that is, giving yourself permission, the freedom to be you. and be self-expressed in a way that works for you, right?
Yeah. And like break that down even clearer for them. Like, what does that mean? Like posting on social media, things that you think people that you see other people getting likes or traction with, or yeah.
So it could be, so for example, right, it could be that you've got a message inside of you, but that you're really afraid to put it out there because it's going to ruffle feathers. So you kind of go the middle vanilla bland way, right? Uh-huh. And so, and listen, I'll share, you know, fully that that was a concern of mine for a while, right? And it's not, again, it's not about us as a person. You come from Canada, I come from England. You know, we have some, let's say, scripting, I think, at times around what we should say, what we shouldn't say, rocking the boat, not rocking the boat, you know, tall poppy syndrome. I mean, all of these other things. I'm on a big mission at the Business Growth Academy to help women achieve financial security through their business, right? And it's not financial empowerment. It's not rah-rah. It's not all of this, you know, hey, girl, go, you can do it, right? It's about building wealth for futures through their business. That, though, was something that I hesitated for quite some time to be more fully self-expressed around, because to your point that you just shared, there are people that will say you're just in it for the money, right? And so we hold back. But I was not being fully self-expressed, because I'm kind of like, now I'm like, yeah, well, you should be in it for the money. There is a big part of it that you should be, because if you actually can't pay your bills
100%
for the future and take care of your kids and have a retirement fund, you're going to be a drain on the economy. And why is that a good thing? Like, hello.
That will lead to health problems, and that will snowball 100%. It's money might not be your main driver, but it's important, and you can't get away from it. And if it is your main driver, awesome. Great. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Some people are really, so as I say, self-expression, you know, obviously we're talking about money as well, financial freedom. That is important when you're in business. And by the way, it's like, what does it look like? Have you actually sat down to do the math? Have you sat down with a professional to really look at what would give you that sense of financial freedom? And again, we can go into so many different levels of this, because some people have millions, by the way, and they are still worrying, right? They are not free, because they're constantly worrying about every single, you know, nickel and dime. Equally so, you know, there are other people that it's like you could help them generate, say, 40% more than they're currently doing right now, and it would make a massive difference to them, right? But again, for me, that financial freedom is about, yes, we are no longer worrying. I'm not saying that we're being blasé about it, right? We've got a system for building revenue, for building wealth. We know full well we can take care of ourselves. We can put away for our futures, right? And again, it's like, let's take away that worry. So of course, money is important. You touched on, again, the other thing, Lisa, again, time. These are classics, right? I mean,
yes.
And I think even those two, the juggle between freedom of money and freedom of time is massive.
I can't tell you.
I know you want to say something.
Oh my God. I can't tell you how many people are like, I'm going to build a one-to-one program because I can make the most money. I want to build a one-to-one program and I want to charge X amount of dollars. And I'm like, okay, what is the scalability of that? Because when you only have one-to-one, you are one of the ones, right?
Yep.
And what, you're going to do 12 one-to-one calls a day, like 5 one-to-one calls, you will cap out. You only have so much energy and time when you want to build something one-to-one. And I always try to align it with people's lifestyles, because I'm like, if you like to travel, if you have little ones, if you have a family, you can have your one-to-one program, but you need something else. Because you're never going to have, kind of like you said about the solopreneur, you're giving up flexibility if you're a solopreneur. If you only have a one-to-one program, I think you're also giving up time freedom there, because that's the only way you make money is when you are one-to-one with someone.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Absolutely. Right. And again, right, these things depend, right? Because I could come back to, okay, let's imagine that you are a high-end coach consultant. You know, you can get
Yes.
great results. Yes, you actually could be building yourself a pretty freedom-based business. You know, let's say it's not going to be total freedom, but let's imagine that you are only working with 10 clients over a year.
Right.
And you're charging, you know that you can command, let's say 25 to 30,000
Right.
for the year, not unreasonable, right?
Right.
2,500 a month. Well, now we're only working with 10 clients. And you could end
Exactly.
up with a whole load of spaciousness, right, on the calendar. But yet, if you, as you say, back to your point, that, you're going one-to-one and you're charging by the hour, right?
Yeah.
And like now I've just I've capped it out because there's only so many hours in the day, right?
Yeah.
Again, this is where you quickly get maxed out and time becomes the issue. So a lot of these things, like when we're talking about, that freedom, it's like, what do you really want here? What are you really, really wanting to achieve? And again, own it. If it's that, the financial, that's why I'm like, no, let's own it. I have no problem if you say, hey, Vanessa, I want to be a millionaire, right? I want to build that business, right? That's going to give me amazing life experiences. I'm going to have money, stupid money that I wouldn't even know what to do with. Like, great, own it. Most people don't own it, right? Again, they're not free. And that comes back to self-expression, Lisa. They're not even being really free in declaring what they really want. And if we don't declare what we really want, it gets very difficult to build the strategy and the pathway to get there.
Yeah, because everything is layered, like everything we're talking about, right? Like, well, you can have a one-to-one program, but make sure it's giving you the time freedom that you want, right? Everything has layers, but everything comes back to that clarity. As you said, everything comes back to, and people pay a lot of money for strategy. People come to me and I know they come to you for strategy, but I can't tell you what to do. I can, but it has to come from your desire, your purpose, your expression. That first spark has to come from you, because I could tell you, go build this business. It's going to make you $5 million. And like you said, people who have a lot of money in the bank, who are miserable, who have, scarcity mindset, who are pinching every penny, those things that we tie success with. If you're not fully in your, as you said, your self-expression with financial freedom, having time freedom, are you really having freedom? If that's not what, someone else can make up the plan for you, but if that doesn't feel right to you, you could look at the way someone else did it, but if that might not work for you, I love that message of own it.
Own it.
Period. Yeah. Own it. Exclamation point.
And seriously, it's like, own it. Don't apologize. Don't compromise. It's like, don't justify. It's like, if this is really what you want, own it. So that the next piece I would say around that then is, freedom of relationships. So building a business is all about relationships as well. Relationships with clients, relationships with team, vendors, peers. We talk about power partners in the Dames, right?
Yeah.
But again, that comes back to my energy. This is my energy, and this, and again, listeners will know this as well, right? There are some people that are simply draining for you to be around.
Yep.
And for other people, they might be lighting them up, right? Again, we're all different, and different strokes for different folks. But again, for me, one of the most important concepts as I was building my business, and by the way, this wasn't a concept that, I created. I remember somebody actually asking me in the early days, who are your ideal clients, Vanessa? As you can tell, I kind of went, what? I've never stopped to think about that, Lisa. And we're going back quite some time. I've just never stopped to think about it. In the early days, I was just delighted. My background was I was a stay-at-home mum looking after my kids turned entrepreneur, right? So I was honestly delighted that people would even pay me money to speak to me, right? So that was that in the early days. Oh my gosh. But then people kept paying me more money, and I got busier and busier and busier. And I actually was that woman that was doing around 160, 100, I think I've maxed it to about 180 at one point in annual revenue. And back-to-back calls on the calendar. I mean, it got to a point where I didn't even know what clients, who they were and what their names were and everything, just so many of them. And some of them were just delightful to work with, and others it was like, oh, good grief, this is like, you're not doing anything. This is so draining. We just go round and round and round. And that concept, right, of relationships, and even the vendors, you know, then we started to look at, you know, people to support. I was like, oh my gosh, no, hang on a minute. I get to create.
Yes.
I get to create this freedom of relationships and actually choose who I want to surround myself with. It's constantly evolving, right? But again, and I'm here now, probably about a decade on from that conversation. We only work with our champagne clients.
Yes.
Right?
We
only work with those.
Yeah, we are the same. It's, and I think that's kind of an evolution that you go through as a business owner as well. Like you said, in the beginning, you're just so happy to have bodies and business and money and proof of concept and people. You're like, oh my God, yes. But then you start, when you have the ability to have choice. I mean, we always have the ability to have choice, but you start to learn quickly that it doesn't matter how much money someone can pay you. If they are going to suck the life out of you, they're not a good client. They're not a good fit. We vet more probably on relationships in our business than we do anything else because of the nature of the work. You're probably the same. The nature of the work that we do is so in depth, and we spend so much time together building and strategizing and collaborating and doing that. If we're always butting heads, or if you're not going to take action, I always say, I can't want it for you more than you want it for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We ask how much of a necessity is this project for you right now? Because if someone's like, oh yeah, you know, it'd be nice if we could, you're not going to put your butt in the seat and do the little bit of work that you actually have to do. You're not going to shoot your video. You're not going to do those things I'm asking you to do if it doesn't matter to you.
Totally true. Yeah. And
we vet on basically like, how much does this matter to you? Because if it doesn't, I don't want to work with you. That's not a relationship I want to get into, because I'm always going to be trying to pull you across the finish line.
Yeah.
And that's no good for anyone. So I think that we forget that you have a choice in your relationships.
Yeah.
You have a choice who you work with. You have a choice who you surround yourself with. All of it, right?
Right. And as I say, it's constantly evolving. And then the last one for me is purpose. Freedom of purpose. You know, what is that work that you are feeling really called to do? You know, I met somebody recently, actually, and it was a really great conversation. It was actually a husband of a dame. And we had an amazing conversation, and he was feeling very drawn to a whole new area of his own business. And this would definitely enter into coaching, healing really space, right? And when he talked about, you know, and again, it was fascinating. There was just so much passion, right? But when we actually looked at the freedom of relationships and who it would be for, he was so clear that the people that he is called to serve really feels like are purposefully aligned with him right now are people that are really in the muck of it. And it was so clear. And he was like, no, those are the people, like, I really feel called. Like, I'm so drawn to them. Those are the people that I can create the biggest transformations with. And he was like, and frankly, you know, the stuff that you do is like, it's amazing. And I'm getting some great results with his wife as well. So he's like, that's amazing. But like, I'd far rather, you know, like, I'd rather hand that off at some other point. Like, I want to be in the muck. That's really what I feel called to do. Right? For me, that's about freedom of purpose. You know, not for anybody else to kind of say, you know, again, and obviously it's tied to relationships and kind of like that transformation that he wants to create in the world, right? And again, it's like, where are we being called? Really feeling that, like, where we're very much aligned. We feel like this is really the calling, like our purposeful work. And, you know, are we really there, as opposed to, you know, somewhere else because we think we should or we think we shouldn't?
Yeah, do you find, because clarity is such a buzzword, right? Like we have to be clear, we have to have clarity, we have to own it, we do, which is all true. Do you feel like with self-expression, financial, time, relationship, purpose, all these freedoms, we know, like I feel like people know, they're just afraid to say it. Like I feel like people are clear, they're just afraid. They're afraid of what, if they say it and they own it, what people will think of them, if they're going to fail. Like, what do you think, that people aren't clear, or do you think they're just afraid to own it?
I actually love that perspective from you, but I actually have a slightly different way, kind of, and frankly builds off of that.
Yeah.
I think there's actually two things that hold people back, right? Because the truth is those freedoms there are always evolving.
Yes.
We need to know that, right? That again, what could feel, you know, very purposeful right now, it's going to evolve, right? We're constantly peeling back the layers of that onion. But for me, there are two reasons where people don't move forwards. Is number one, they're actually not clear.
Okay.
And they're actually not clear enough to kind of take their next steps, right? And by the way, again, I actually don't believe in like, everything has to be like crystal clear clarity and 100%, you know, 20/20 vision and all the rest of it, because again, those things can evolve. And as long as we've got enough clarity, let's face it, like we could imagine walking through the forest, right? And we've got, you know, the fog has come down, it's been snowy and blizzardy, and like we've just got zero visibility, right? Yeah, you can stop and do nothing, right? But what if we could just clear that pathway so that we could just take 2 or 3 steps so that we can kind of then next see the way ahead? So I do think that there is a part of where we need to, and again, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about coaching and mentoring others is we gain clarity most frequently through conversations. It's very difficult.
Oh, yes.
Possible, right? But to try and do that in our own head without sounding boards and somebody else to, you know, great questions and listening, a lot of that is through the conversation. Now, the next thing is though, is what if you really have got clarity of what you want and you're still not moving forwards? Now, for me, we're into the fear conversation. So I'll often say that to the clients, like, okay, what is this right now? Like start to discern, like, where are you lacking in clarity on this? We need to like shine it up a little bit and get clear. Or is it emotionally based and it's fear? And of course, as to your point, you know, the biggest fears are, I think the biggest fears are not, by the way, anybody listening, if you think it's fear of success or fear of failure, I'm going to say BS to that. It absolutely is not. Really isn't. That's again like saying freedom, right? We all talk about, oh, it's the fear of success and failure, and we've like heard it so many times we say it. I think the two big ones are fear of judgment.
Yep.
Which is, you were alluding to that, right? What will others think? What will others say? And then I think the other one is actually fear of disappointment.
Ooh.
I know. It's kind of got to, whenever I say that, it's like, you know, people always go, oh, that, it's like, oh yes, that resonates, because what if I go for what I really want and I have to experience that searing pain of disappointment and not getting there, right? And we've all experienced it, especially as kids, you know, we've all, and adults, of course we have. But I seem to really remember that a lot of those lessons from my childhood around disappointment, and it held me back for a while, Lisa, because it was like, shoot, it felt like the fear of the risk of disappointment was worse than, you know, sort of going for it at some point. And I had to reverse that and actually realize that I would feel more disappointed if I actually didn't go for it. And whatever I was going for, frankly, I might discover that actually it wasn't the thing that I wanted, because that can happen too, but trusting that something else would reveal itself in that process.
Oh, yes. And that dying with regret is a huge thing. Like you said, not going for it can be a bigger pain than the disappointment of going for it and having it not work out the way you planned. Because as you said, we're always evolving. All of this is always evolving. It's always growing. And it's interesting when you talked about the first one, that they're not clear enough. And the very beginning of the podcast, you said, typically it's because you're in a vacuum. And I love how you said that you get clear through conversations. And that's such a helpful tip, especially for you listener who isn't getting in conversation, isn't sharing, isn't sure. There's nothing worse than being kind of paralyzed and then staying there by yourself in your closet, in your vacuum, in your thing, right? You got to have conversations to get you clear. And then if that fear of judgment or things come up, that's why you got to have the right support system around you to help you own it and build it and do it.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Yeah. So important. And the support system of people that want more for you than they want from you. Like people that are really there, you know, not, oh, they're going to be there in the good times, but the minute the bad times hit, they're not there. No, it's like these people that really see your potential and say they want more for you than they want from you. Those are the people that to surround yourself with.
Yeah. And know that, like, it's almost like growing pains as you're evolving. I think there's also this myth when we talk about flexibility and freedom, and that everything is always rainbows and sunshine, and it's not. As you're evolving and figuring these things out and coming, you know, face up with your fears and your worries and your things you're going to own and claim and want and say and do. I think there are a lot of emotions that come up with that, and knowing that that's normal too. When you're in that storm, knowing that you will evolve and grow through it if you keep taking action and you keep being willing to face it. Right.
I mean, you said so much there again, and it's back to that collaboration and community, and as you say, not doing things in a vacuum. But again, we've worked with a lot of business owners, of course, we know thousands at this point, and that's often one of the things. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
Or like I thought when I had my business plan in the early days, even if I kind of did it on the back of a napkin, that was like the guiding map for forever. But I've evolved, and now this is no longer working, and I want my role to be different. I want this to be whatever it is. But again, it's like to normalize a lot of those things, because entrepreneurs, we are, especially self-employed, we're kind of the weird ones, really.
Totally.
We totally are. I mean, we are in a way the unicorns, right? It isn't a journey of unicorns and rainbows and sparkle dust and all those other crazy things. But, most other people are settling for security, right? Or perceived security, right? So again, they want to be employed, might be in corporate America, right? And want that regular paycheck. Got to realize that, if we're going out on our own, we've entered another world and another economy. And yes, this is the place where we can create our own economies. Yes, this is the place where we can really start to build freedom for ourselves on those different levels. And it's going to be really important to surround ourselves with people that are ahead of us on that path as well, right? Not at the same level, not struggling, not stuck in the same hamster wheel, not stuck in the same mindset, but people that are ahead that can actually shine the light, right? And show you the way and actually show you what's possible.
Oh, yes. That was one of the big reasons why I love the Dames, because I was like, we're not at the $1 million mark yet. We've made over $1 million, but we don't make $1 million annually. And I'm like, crap, there's 7-figure earners annually that are going to come back and share and tell me, do this, don't do this, go here, think about this. I happen to be in rooms where I was the one that people were looking to advice to. And I was so excited to get in rooms, exactly what you just said, where people were steps ahead of me, and they were leaps and bounds ahead of me. and they were going to be willing to be generous and share. So I agree. If you're the one in the circle that everyone's coming to you, you need a broader, bigger circle of someone who's been where you want to go and they're willing to generously share, or you hire them, or you get in their programs and you get around them. Oh my God, I love that. So listener, go back and own it. Self-expression, financial freedom, time freedom, relationship freedom, purpose. You got to know yourself first before you can start mapping out what this is going to look like, or get help with what this is going to look like. Really sit and think about those 5 freedoms that Vanessa generously shared, and start there if you feel like you're in the hamster wheel or you've hit the ceiling. And know that, I love how you said it's always evolving. It's always changing. It's always growing. So what is the $1 million question? You've got something for them. Tell them about that.
Something for them, but I'm not going to reveal what the $1 million question is, but there is a book. They can actually go to $1millionquestion.com, download my free book. You can glass of wine, a latte, tea, and honestly, you can read it. It's a short book, so it's not long, but it honestly is a question that has helped so many of our clients achieve the next level of their version of freedom. And actually the forward is actually written by a friend and mentor of mine, Russ Perry, who now runs a 10 million plus company. That company was built by answering that question. So if that's, and again, super practical, and everybody is going to be able to answer that question. Again, a lot of the stuff I teach, Lisa, and I know you are super practical,
Yes.
Boots on the ground type approach, and we don't like the fluff. There's absolutely always amazing answers to answering the $1 million question. And frankly, on the other side of answering that question lies the next level of freedom. So it's again, super practical, a question that any business owners should be asking themselves probably every 90 days, really, and constantly then up leveling through it. So yeah, that's the $1millionquestion.com, free gift.
I love that so much. Don't worry if you're driving and you don't have a pen and paper handy, or you didn't get that down. I will make sure to put that in the show notes, because I know you come here for exactly that. You're coming here for what's that one tip? What's that one question? What's that one perspective change that you can give me? And that's just the most perfect gift for this community, Vanessa. Thank you so much. And don't worry, I will put your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your Instagram, your Facebook business page, your website, your podcast, all your goodies as well in the show notes, so that they can get in contact with you if they want follow-up, or they want to know all those good things you've got going on, how they can get connected to you. And thank you for sharing all of that. That was just, that was so good. This is one of those ones that I want to go back to and reevaluate my business and my decisions, and always kind of those 5 points, almost like a gut check for me, to make sure I'm in alignment with what I want in my life. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know I'm going to go back to this, and my listeners will probably go back to this as well. So thank you for being here today with us.
Oh my gosh. It was so delightful, Lisa. I love hanging out with you anyway. So this was just fun. And I was also going to say with the listeners, again, we're super approachable over at the Business Growth Academy. If you've listened to something and it resonated today, I know, Lisa, you love this. I'm a podcaster too. I love to hear from you. Send in an email, be generous and just saying, hey, that conversation really resonated, or that's that one thing that I'm going to change, because we put these podcasts out in the world, to be of service, to add value, to create mindset shifts. And it's nothing greater than actually hearing from our audiences when they go, oh my gosh, that really helped. So reach out, be generous.
I love that. Amen, amen, amen. Thank you for being here. Reach out, be generous, and we'll see you next time on The Lisa Pezik Show.
You've been listening to The Lisa Pezik Show. Let's connect more at www.lisapezik.com.